when you kind of went through your process, did you have to do similar? So you don't have a driving license as such, or do you? Do
No.
you have? Yeah, because like yeah, I've heard of other people as well. They refuse to get that. So when you don't have that, do you then, when you get a car, because you have to get the registration from the car, which is technically you don't own it anymore. That's what I'm seeing. So
Right.
did you deregister your car, or did you do anything in that sense?
Yeah. So when I first started doing this, the car I had at the time was registered, and I ended up unregistering it, and they fought me on it because I sent them a I was kind of learning from, all the information that was out there on the internet, right? And I found somebody had an example of a letter that you send to the DMV that says, I don't believe it needs to be registered. I don't need a license to drive, all this other stuff. And so therefore I want you to unregister the car. And they sent a letter back and they were like, no, that's crazy. Here's all the laws. And they gave me a bunch of cases to read. And at that point I had just kind of given up. I was like, well, I mean, if they won't even unregister the car, like, what am I supposed to do? But then I thought about it a little bit more and I looked into some of the laws and I said, okay, I'm not going to try to argue with them about, what my rights are because that's what happened, right? I sent them a letter to argue with them and they responded with an argument. Instead, I sent them a letter with instructions and I said, I want you to unregister this car. I want you to cancel my registration. And I think I mentioned I was taking it to a foreign jurisdiction, which from California could mean Nevada, right? Um, that was all that I said. And they unregistered the car. So the next time I got stopped, they said, we can't find the car in the system. And I'm like, well, that's because it's not registered. And that was kind of the end of and then they were like, okay, well, you need to go register it. And I was like, okay, sure. um, because like it's really interesting if you start digging into all the different state laws, like they even say it's okay to drive unregistered, for some 30-day period, right? And how do they know? Now, of course, this gets into the gray area because then people would say, okay, so that's fine for 30 days, but after that, well, first of all, they have the burden of proof. But even if I admit I had the car for more than 30 days, there's still nothing that really says that I have to register it if it's not for commercial purposes.